Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting of Thursday, December 3rd, 2015. And while we have a short agenda this evening, I really did want to mix up one of the agenda items this evening, excuse me. We have the Long Range Planning Board in here this evening and the Green Community presentation. And unfortunately, it's not part of the agenda this evening, but in other business, I'll get it out one way or the other, trust me. I'd like to add that particular item to that agenda. So please, if you would bear with me, we'll have the Long Range Planning discuss the Green Community Initiative first thing, if that's okay. Gentlemen, if you would like to introduce yourself to the camera. I know who you are, but please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Jack Donahue, Chairman of the Long Range Planning Committee.
Peter Smith.
Mark Sarah from the Planning Board.
Rich Forte from Long Range Planning.
Thank you. You have the floor, please.
Well, if I understand, our objective is to come in and bring you up to date on what's been happening pertaining to green community certification. We actually started this at the request of the Selectmen, so that's where it began. And for the last 9 to 10 months, we've been looking at it in various aspects with the understanding of coming back to you and the town as to whether or not this is a desirable thing to pursue. And I think we all agree, the Long Range Planning Committee, totally, that it's a great thing to pursue. It has tremendous merit and very little downside to it. Green certification is under the Mass General laws. It's administered by the Massachusetts Department of Energy. And what it does is if you become certified, all of a sudden you then qualify for grants, for funding and grants, for projects in town related to energy conservation. When you start off and become certified, the first threshold is generally around $125,000. So that's not a small amount of money that a town can use. And then year after year, depending on what project you elect to take, you can receive more funding. For example, Sherburne, who has been certified for the last 2 or 3 years, they've received over $200,000 in grants to date. I think about $225,000. And what's interesting with the Sherburne situation is our town planner, Gino Carlucci, is part-time planner for Dover and part-time planner for the town of Sherburne. He's been down the road. He's done it already. So he's a tremendous asset for us to tell us the ins and the outs and how to do it. So the idea is energy conservation and receiving grants. It sounds like a win-win all around. To qualify is not a high hurdle at all. There are 5 criteria. And working with the members of the Long Range Planning Committee, we sort of allocated these 5 items out for various reasons, basically efficiency, and we've all looked into different ones of them. So I'm going to ask Mark on the planning board to talk about the first 2, which are planning board related.
Yeah, so I'll just give you a brief overview of them, and you let me know if you have questions or want more detail, because you keep going to many levels of this. So the first criteria for approval under the Green Communities Act is for as-of-right zoning for renewable energy, either generation, research and development facility, or a manufacturing facility. The town has the ability to choose any or all of those things based on what's appropriate for the town. And it also has the ability to choose locations or even particular types of technology that would be most suitable for the town. As of right zoning, just to be sure everyone understands what that term of art refers to, is zoning that would be subject to reasonable regulation, and it's generally taken in practice to mean not subject to a special permit. So under the requirements for this program, the town would have site plan review control over a proposal for this type of installation, but it wouldn't be subject to a special permit. Site plan review would be under our general site plan review bylaws that currently exists. So when the planning board thought about, with the Long Range Planning Committee, what types of renewable energy, either generation R&D or manufacturing facilities might be appropriate for Dover, both groups consider lots of different options. Wind is not great in the town of Dover because we're so wooded, and so that didn't seem like a good option. the long and short was, at the end of the day, the most viable option for a project like this seemed to be ground-mounted solar, which qualifies under the Green Communities Act, at a minimum size of 250 kilowatts. So in relative terms, you can think of a rooftop solar installation being anywhere between 5 and 10 kilowatts. And so 250 kilowatts is roughly about an acre or so of solar. And these would be the kinds of PV panels that you see off the sides of, in fields or off the sides of highways and things like that, in parking lots sometimes. So to create the as-of-right zoning that's required under this first criterion, the planning board worked with the Long Range Planning Committee to craft, and we have a draft already posted to the website, a zoning bylaw which would allow for as-of-right zoning of a ground-mounted solar PV array of at least 250 kilowatts in town, and we had to consider the location where that would be allowed. The draft bylaw would create essentially an overlay district. So we have our residential districts and our open space and official district in town. We have the business and manufacturing district here. Long Beach Planning Committee and Planning Board considered different locations in town to figure out what might be suitable for an overlay district to allow for this kind of facility. And there's a very nice spot actually that we currently designated in the proposal. And so that's over on the westwood side of town, in what's currently the 2-acre residential district carved out of what's surrounded by open space. On Powasset Street, essentially at and around the location of the transfer station. So it's the parcel that seems most appropriate for this kind of siting. It's actually owned by Hale Reservation, not the town. So under the Green Communities Act, the parcel doesn't have to be owned by the town. Where towns do own the parcel, the town then takes a little more control over the project, the leasing and all of that, but there's no requirement that that be the case. This parcel is owned by Hale Reservation, but the overlay district that the current draft bylaw creates includes also the parcel that houses the transfer station currently. And so it's not specific to a parcel. It's specific to that area because the area, it has a few characteristics that make it perfect for this in some sense. Number one, there's already clear open space in order to site a ground-mounted solar array without removing any trees or anything like that. That site itself has no nearby butters whatsoever. It's surrounded by woods and the transfer station. And then also, it's very close, it's located very close to transmission lines that are down on Dover Westwood line. And so in that sense, it seemed ideal through the process of having a public hearing on the bylaw, which we will eventually do, and all the rest. We could discuss other locations, but we vetted those pretty closely, and this does seem to be the ideal location. Just one other thing to point out under the bylaw in terms of creating this zoning as of right, so the ability to go through the site plan review process to site a ground-mounted solar facility does not mean that such a facility would have to be built in order to qualify under the Green Communities Act. So the town could achieve green community status just by establishing this as of right zoning, and then it would be up to the landowners or someone who has control of the parcel in the overlay district where that's allowed to either do this or not.
That's a question mark, please. Thank you for that. The piece of land behind the transfer station is subject to annual testing?
The former landfill?
Yes.
Yes. It's actually quarterly testing, Mr. Don.
Would that throw it into a different category whereby you'd need an approval by a state agency or something in addition to us just, the town calling that the area? You know what I mean? That's not a very eloquent question, but would it throw it into a different level of approval?
Yeah, no, I understand. It's a good question, actually. It's one of the reasons that typically we create an overlay district. It's not specific to a parcel, but the parcel that's next to the transfer station is the parcel I refer to that is already cleared and has much more than 1 acre. You probably need an acre. So because you only need an acre of that open space, you could probably site a facility around whichever areas are most sensitive, which is a benefit of having a large parcel like that. But again, to qualify for green community status, the town only needs to designate an area as of right, where something like this could be developed with a reasonable prospect, where it's reasonably feasible. So the question of testing and such would be something that would probably be taken up when someone proposes such a thing. The planning board could also look into it as well. It's something Gina might know.
Yeah, good, thanks. Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt, Bob.
Yeah, no, so that's it. That's really the first criterion. So we have a draft file already up on the website for review, and we will have a public hearing on that sometime early in the year. Probably after, around the same time that the Long Range Planning Committee has a broader hearing on the proposal itself.
Great, thanks, Mark.
And Mark, if I could just add, it's interesting that where we're planning, where we see to be the most feasible location, the town of Dover does not own the land.
Right, Hale Reservation.
Hale Reservation owns it. All we're doing is rezoning an area to qualify with the criteria to become green certified. What happens after that is really up to Hale Reservation and an interested third party. So it's
And do I understand that the only reason we have something to say about it is because we're already leasing the land around the transfer station?
the reason we have something to say about it is because we control the zoning of the town.
Right,
It's in Dover.
And by virtue of
I
us
see.
selecting this
It's in Dover.
location
I
as
see.
being most suitable, that's the area
I
we
see.
see fit to rezone.
and this part of Hale is actually located in Dover. That's what I understand.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we did, as part of our due diligence,
Right.
we did contact, correct, Jack?
Yeah.
We did contact and talk to Hale about, whether this was something that they would or might consider.
Hale is on board with this.
Right.
It's
Good.
already been contacted.
I think it's a perfect location for this designation.
Yeah, when you come into the dump, on the right-hand side.
Or
Transfer
slash
station.
transfer
Excuse me.
station.
Right,
Dating yourself.
When you come into the transfer station. to the
Right, yeah.
There's a field right there.
Right there, yeah.
And it's just, around the greater Boston area, you see a lot of these
Right.
cropping up from time to time.
And actually, Peter Smith also spent some time in Harwich, and he said at the transfer station there, they actually have a solar array that you don't even see until you pull into the transfer station.
And to your point, they have built it right over the capped land.
Oh, they have, okay, good.
So they have, that's a huge array, that's 4.5 megawatts. But they have completely covered the capped landfill, so, and I'm sure they're under a similar testing regime.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So,
Interesting.
it can accommodate both uses.
well, that's great.
One of the most common areas for creating the overlay district for this kind of thing. Sherburne did the same. I know Cap landfill is the location in Sherburne that's been designated as well.
And Sudbury too, I believe.
Lots of
Yeah,
towns.
that's
Right, right.
It's a perfect
And,
use.
there are ways to shield it from the road.
Mhm, right.
With shrubs, so,
Hmm.
I see it.
Rich, why don't you talk about the third criteria of the energy reduction plan of 20% over 5 years?
Sure, so one of the criteria, as Jack just mentioned, is that the town would then have to make plans over a 5-year period to reduce the energy consumption by the town by 20%. That would include all energy use. It would be fuel for vehicles, electric, oil, gas, if it was used, propane in any of the public buildings. It can be used through reducing light fixtures, better insulation, redoing windows, any of those types of things. But as long as we have a plan to work our way forward in that respect, for a 20% reduction is the criteria that has to be met. We don't have to achieve it, we have to make the best faith effort to get there.
And you can look back 2 years, like you can pick when that 5-year period is gonna.
But it's 5 years
From
from
that
that period
date.
that you pick.
You pick a baseline.
Right.
Right,
So if you, for instance, if you had a big energy savings program 2 years earlier, you could have that point be a starting point to achieve it. And
oh, it's good. If I was dramatic, I would have shut the lights off in the middle of that statement, right? That would have
we
fit
don't
very well.
have that.
But I think part of the thing to consider also is that when you start looking at what we might have available from a public building type perspective and how things are used also, there's also some, it's taken as a whole, it's not taken by particular areas. And if the town decided to, you can include the region as part of our
Oh,
district, because Sherburne's already a green community, so with Dover being a green community, the region could then be a green community, and part of the offsets could be used up at the region as well. So there's energy saving devices or a system that's going in place up there that can help offset what's going to be used at the town as well.
that's excellent. I know, Robin, you had mentioned your last capital budget committee meeting, or about the region, I should say.
Right, so at the last capital budget committee meeting, we met with the region to go, and Sherborne, to go over their capital plan for the next 5 years. And one of the things we talked to their business manager about was looking through the capital plan and identifying some, capital items that may be able to utilize grants from the green community, and then get back to us on those items that needed to be done.
Great incentive.
Right. And at the region, both Dover and Sherborne can apply for a grant for the same project.
Okay, the fourth item is the use of the fuel-efficient vehicles and the energy efficiency that needs to be worked towards regarding those. Peter worked so hard as our secretary that I gave him the easiest criteria.
We also promised the police chief a Tesla next time around.
Yeah, on the high end, that's nice.
Actually, this criteria is fairly straightforward for Dover to meet. It requires that we commit to make all future vehicle purchases from fuel-efficient categories. Emergency vehicles are excluded from this, so fire engines, police cruisers don't have to fall into that criteria. And also heavy-duty vehicles, school buses, highway department vehicles, dump trucks don't have to qualify. So based on the inventory that I've seen, there are perhaps 3 or 4 vehicles in town, which when they come up for replacement, and the state maintains a list of acceptable vehicles. There's also fuel mileage criteria for very two-wheel drive car, four-wheel drive car, minivan, pickup truck, and so forth. And it could be simply a matter of just, switching from a V8 to a V6 in a truck, and the requirements are not onerous. I've spoken to Dave Tiberi about the inspector's vehicle, the police chief about the detective's car and his car. Haven't spoken to cemetery yet, but this would be very straightforward for us to meet. No town meeting action is required, just the Board of Selectmen has to formally adopt this as a policy, send that document to the state, and then we just have to fill out an annual inventory, and for those vehicles which will, when they reach end of life, have to be replaced, simply note that, yes, we're planning on doing this. So
Interesting.
very simple and minimal paperwork.
Excellent. In an effort to be proactive, is the capital budget committee starting to look at the replacement vehicles, the
Right.
few that are in that category? for
Right,
that
so
purpose?
we've had discussions about integrating the green community process into the capital
Good.
budget process, because at the end of the day, if we do vote to become a green community, we need a steward of the program so that we can be successful.
James Stewart?
So, if you,
Watching.
right. So and we thought the capital budget committee is probably a good place, because they,
I agree with that.
they're looking at purchases going out
Right.
5 years.
That's good, so that's attainable, very good, thank you. Thank you, Peter.
So of the first 4 criteria, they will require 2 zoning articles at town meeting. The first one being the overlay district, the zoning article, and there'll be a public hearing with the planning board before that. And the second one is the zoning bylaw for an expedited permit process. So those are the 2 articles before town meeting. The third article, which would come before town meeting, is the 5th criteria, and that is the town adopting the so-called stretch code. And the stretch code is essentially an appendix to the building code of the state. And the concern is, well, is this more stringent? What are the ramifications of it? Is it going to be more costly for a builder? Is it going to be more costly for a homeowner? Now, I thought the best source of that is the building inspector. So I started with our building inspector, Walter Avalon, and talked to him about the implementation of the stretch code. And he tells me that right now, the existing building code, as we have it, is even more strict than the so-called stretch code, which hopefully would be adopted. There's a lot of overlay between the 2 of them. I next talked to Insurance, where they worked with it, the former building inspector, Felix Zemmel, and he has been very comfortable working with the stretch code. He's found it no more stringent and has been very comfortable working with it, as most of the builders. And what's interesting is he just took a new job, and that is the commissioner of the building department for the state. So he said, as we speak, Jack, I'm rewriting the building code in conjunction with the stretch code. So there's going to be a merging of these, I think, in time. So then I followed up and talked with the new current building inspector for the town of Sherburne. That's Henry Fontaine. I spoke to him yesterday, and again, just like the other two, he sees no problem with the stretch code. He finds it comfortable to work with. The stretch code is all about energy efficiency, doing things in a more energy efficient way, which ultimately is the objective of the whole program. So I think the concern is, are we going to have difficulty selling the fifth criteria at town meeting, meaning the stretch code? I don't think we will. I think we'll be able to explain it thoroughly, and I think people will be comfortable with it. So those are the 5 criteria, 5 hurdles to be met. I don't think anything is too high a hurdle for the town. And one last thing I wanted to mention, of the 351 cities and towns, to date, 160 have adopted the Green Community Program.
Just under
Good
that.
start.
That's 45%.
Right.
Yes, Mark?
Just to clarify one point, because I didn't really explicitly address the expedited approval process that Jack mentioned. It's, I mean, for planning board purposes, the approval of something like this in the site plan review process would really be that expedited. So what the program requires is that the approval of a proposal for one of these facilities would be approved within a year. You can even incorporate something like, Mass General Law 43G, I think, which provides for approval within 180 days. But in any event, site plan review typically takes less time than that anyway. And so that is not at all an onerous requirement. Also, the zoning bylaw proposal itself creates the overlay district that we discussed. So as it's currently drafted, we have one zoning bylaw change that creates the overlay district, and then the stretch code bylaw that Jack just mentioned would be the second article.
May I ask a question about the stretch code?
Yes.
Dover's building codes are stricter than the stretch codes, as you just said, somewhat.
Somewhat, yes.
Okay.
It's the state building code, really. It's the
Yeah.
international conservation code.
So inherently, it wouldn't be approved already because there wouldn't be a stretch code already in the plans, you know what I mean, whether it's grandfathered in or inherently accepted, but you do have to adopt it despite the current status.
We do have to adopt the stretch code because some of it supersedes the building code,
Okay,
incorporates parts of it and supersedes it in part.
good, thanks. My thought on the zoning bylaw change, I recall probably 4 or 5 years ago when the planning board tried to really clean up the Is and the Ts and and plural and all that good stuff. I remember that town meeting. It was a very difficult town meeting for whatever reason, and it didn't pass, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the open space zoning bylaw went 3 times and didn't pass.
Right.
Narrowly didn't. The zoning bylaw changes that the planning board considered at that time didn't even make it to town meeting. The planning board decided to pull the article.
Right,
in
okay.
advance.
But I think my point here is the education of what you guys are trying to do, and what we're trying to do, obviously, all of us, has to be at the forefront. Sometimes when people don't understand what you're trying to do, and you're just trying to change a bylaw in the town, whether it's building code or the zoning, it's not well received sometimes. So educating the masses is key here to a great worthwhile cause.
So,
We have on the town website a summary of the proposal, and there's a number of links that people can go on to. And you can really learn as much as you want or as little as you want about this. There's a great deal of information out there. One of the most interesting links on the website is an index of all the towns that have adopted it, and by line item, the things that they've received funding for and the amount of funding. And it's really incredible to see how some of these towns have done. I think it was passed around 2010, but it really just started to get traction in the last few years.
There's 4 seasoned veteran people in front of me from the different groups in town, 4. And I think all you'll agree that you can lead the horse to the water, but you can't make the horse drink. So my point is, even though you've done your due diligence to put it on the website and talked about it, I really think there has to be a much greater marketing effort for this to pass. And again, I'm 100% behind what you guys are trying to do, but the marketing effort has to be great.
And Mr. Dahlia, right, we talked about what is the best approach to educating
Good, thank you.
the citizens of Dover, and we thought this meeting tonight would be the first step. The second, the planning board has to have an open hearing, and then the long-range planning committee was also going to do some open hearings. The issue we face is, when do you do those? Because you don't want to do it too soon, and you don't want to wait too late. So, we're going to, with the link on the website, tonight's meeting, hopefully people will watch and see what this initiative is. And then after the holiday season, we'll think about when to do some open hearing. I don't want to call it
Perhaps
open
getting
hearing.
a nice article in the newspaper, in a local newspaper
Well,
might be
and
nice.
that's why and that was definitely, we're hoping to get one
So you
today.
anticipated my questions,
Yeah,
thank you.
we're contemplating, I might call it a question and answer period,
Mhm.
where this publication of the meeting, the session at the town hall, and we could get 10 people, we could get 50 people. We want to get.
Could get one person.
You know what's a great source of education in this town is through the email blast the schools send, whether it's the grammar, middle, or high school. Because then the kids bring this stuff home as an adult, parent, excuse me, I'm not an adult yet, I'm a parent. I read everything.
Yeah.
It might be a great way to use as a distribution channel, so to speak. So consider that also. Try to get our school children involved in the green initiative of this town, somehow.
So there is at the high school, there is a environmental science class
Everyone's in front of me on these ideas,
that's-
everyone.
that's available for seniors to take. It's a science elective, and a lot of what they focus on is recycling and the environment. So that might, maybe if we try to figure out who the teacher is and contact them and see if they could help us disseminate information.
What we don't want is people coming to town meeting for the first time and saying, what is this?
That's
Right.
correct.
Exactly.
It will never pass.
We hear you loud and clear.
I have a question. When is the first, if all goes as planned, when is the first time Dover could begin to reap the benefits of the certification?
Good question, and I'm not sure of the answer. Maybe one of my fellow committee members is, but I would say at the earliest, probably 2017.
But that's still palpable,
What
you
would you
know?
guys think?
Yeah, that was part of the.
Fiscal or
Right.
Well, I think
calendar.
fiscal year 2015, so it would be after town meeting.
So,
I think we could apply for grants
Right,
next fall,
right.
and then, be in the program the year after.
good,
That's exciting for all of us in Dover,
Yeah.
to realize it could be close.
And then right after we get the first one, we gear up and apply for another one.
Right,
absolutely, yeah.
And that's the other thing we don't fully understand is the mechanism of the grants and how they work, and we'll have to tie that into our grant policy.
But I believe the first grant comes out of the pool.
Right,
Of money
and-
that the legislature has put into the program for that year.
Mhm.
And then after your first taste, you submit competitive grants.
I see,
And those get scored
right.
based on need and value.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Gino said, based upon the initial grants that other towns have gotten, he thought our grant would be somewhere around $150,000.
That's great,
It's great.
that's fantastic. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, pleasure being here.
Exciting.
Yes, please, if you'd like to leave, we're going through the budgets now, Jack, if you want to stay and listen. Okay, please, I'll give you the opportunity. Gentlemen, thank you very much, it's good to see all of you. Thank you, Mark. Okay, as I move along back into the agenda as published, the 1B will be the review the Selectmen's fiscal 2017 operating budgets. And I know we have one revised budget. Who would like someone to speak to the revised budget?
I can do the.
Please, Greg. Thank you.
A couple of days ago, the town website became inaccessible due to malware infections from the Park and Rec website. And our IT specialist, Bill Clark, looked into this, and he worked with our web hosting group, and they referred him to SiteLock. They're a company that specializes in these kinds of virus problems on websites generally. And we paid for a service where they provide us with antivirus, a firewall. They do constant monitoring of websites, and if there is in fact an invasion, they will go into the website, find the malware, and remove it. So we have added $2,400 to the data processing website under professional services line item for that purpose, to cover the two websites.
Well, may I ask a question?
Yes.
I would have been under the impression that we have firewalls and security already.
We do, and that's for the computers, the town computers. We did not have that in place for websites. I'm not sure how common it is for people to have those kinds of safeguards in place.
In the
for
corporate
websites.
world, it's very, very common.
Okay, well, this was new for us, and
Okay,
we have not
okay.
had it.
Lesson learned?
Yes,
Chalk it up, lesson learned?
absolutely.
Yep. Because I know the Park and Rec use, I don't know whether it's cloud, where there's enrollment and all that, rather than the paper enrollment, so I don't know how that interacts with that whole thing.
Yes.
And I'm sure Mr. Clark would know.
Yes,
Okay, lesson learned.
yes,
Fix the problem, move forward, and it's $2,400 a year, is that what you said?
for the two websites,
$2,400
yes.
well spent.
Well spent, yes. Okay, thank you. Are there any other revisions from what was handed out last week, or 2 weeks ago?
No.
Good. So we will continue to review the fiscal 2017 operating budgets. Thank you. Any questions further?
No.
Candace?
No, thank you.
Hey, thanks. Let's move right along then to the second item on the agenda, which is the request to plow Hunter's Path, snow plow, I should say, and snow removal, I imagine. Hunter's Path. Dave, are you speaking to this?
Mr.
Please.
Dolly, this is a request made by the Superintendent of Streets. Last year, as you recall, the board authorized the plowing of Betsy Lane. Hunter's Path is a little extension off of Betsy Lane. And what they encountered last year in plowing Betsy Lane is they were effectively plowing in Hunter's Lane. So they remedied that in the field last year, and I suggested to Mr. Hughes that we ought to get the selectmen's authorization to, in fact, continue to do that on Hunter's Path, excuse me.
Okay, I know when you come up Betsy Lane, there's a little circular, a roundabout, as they say around here, and then Hunter's Path takes a right. So when they did the roundabout, they
The
shut off.
windrow was plowing Hunter's
Okay,
Path.
so it might be another 200 feet down on the right then.
It's incidental, but we just want to be technically correct.
Okay, and this is from Craig Hughes. Craig, thank you for this. I know the area, I know the discussion from last year as far as Betsy Lane. It's a beautiful development. I don't have any other further questions.
I don't either. I think for those watching, it would be good to point out that on December 18th, 2014, we approved the plowing of Betsy Lane.
Yes.
So
Okay,
this is just an extension of that,
yes, absolutely.
almost an oversight.
Well, actually, it wasn't so much an oversight because the house on the right, which just transferred, wasn't complete.
Oh, okay.
And we want to keep snow plowing to completed streets, completed subdivisions, to be consistent with past practice.
Okay. Well,
That
that
being
makes
said,
sense.
yes.
Right. Would you like me to make a motion?
I would, yes, love that, thank
Okay,
you.
I would like to make a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent of streets to plow Hunter's Path as part of our snow and ice operation.
No questions, so I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Craig.
We need to sign them?
No.
No? Okay.
There is a authorization on the front of our
I know, that's why I
memorandum.
asked.
Yes, but we don't need to sign that.
Okay. I listen to Mona. Whenever Mona talks, I listen to her.
Okay, that's why I didn't tell you to do it.
When Mona speaks.
When Rhea and Mona tell me to do something, I do it.
Next item on the agenda is appoint a senior custodian. Greer or Dave, who would like to speak to this, please? Greer?
I can. Stephen Guy retired. He was one of our 2 senior custodians, the evening custodian. And with his retirement in October, we went out and advertised the position. We received 10 applications, and of those, we interviewed 5 that appeared to be qualified, and we found that Donald Fissler is by far the most qualified. He has extensive custodial experience, and also has an education from a regional vocational technical school in building maintenance. He is quite well versed in that as well. So we felt that that was an additional benefit, and the building maintenance superintendent is recommending his appointment this evening.
Very good. And if we approve him, the start date?
He would have to give his current employer 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Good, thanks. Aside from this, I didn't have the opportunity to thank Steve Guy for his years of service to the town. And he was always a bright smile for me when I walked in. So Steve, I don't know if you're watching, but thank you very much.
He was very patient with Conservation Commission. He would run late.
That being said, Mr. Warnick has recommended Donald Fissler to fill the vacant senior custodian position. I always defer to the people who actually, when the rubber meets the road, yes, in life. I do not have any questions. I do not question Mr. Warnick's recommendation. Do I hear any other questions or concerns?
No, I certainly think it's wonderful that we had 10 applicants.
We did, yes, it was quite a bit of
Excellent.
interest.
Excellent.
Then I'll entertain a motion. Would someone like to make that motion?
I will make a motion to appoint Donald Fissler as senior custodian in the town of Dover.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Fissler, and welcome to the town of Dover. As we move forward back into other business, we have special licenses this evening, and we have 2. And once again, I have to thank Mona for coordinating this and making it much easier. I have 2. I'll read them both, and then we'll vote on both as one vote. The first one is a holiday luncheon at the Connors Center on December 14th, and December 16th is a holiday lunch, also at the Connors Center. The chief has approved both. Thank you. So I'll make the motion that we approve both special license as read. Do I hear a second? Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you very much.
These we have to sign.
Yes, we have to sign. Mona told us to sign them.
Oh. I thought there were 3 of them.
Are you writing in pencil or pen?
It's a joint pen.
Pen, thank you. Just ran out.
Oh, see, everybody's prepared for me not having pens.
Like a White House signing that. I'll use this for Kansas, I'll use this for...
Dave has a good pen.
Absolutely. Beautiful.
No, I'm all set there. That's a cross pen.
That's beautiful.
All set, thank you, Candace.
Thank you.
As we move right along into our next agenda item, and we're going to vote to approve the November 5th and 19th, 2015 meeting minutes. So if we can first review the November 5th meeting minutes. This is the meeting which the Springdale Study Committee came in and gave us an update and their recommendations.
That was a busy meeting.
Yes, it was. have no changes to them. I don't know if anyone does. So I'll make the motion that we approve the November 5th, 2015 meeting minutes of the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. On to the November 19th meeting minutes. This was the meeting that the tax classification hearing and the assessors attended. And a woman by the name of Carol Lisbon came in for the recycling committee information brochure.
And we saw the little insert,
Yep.
and we reviewed budgets. I forgot we reviewed budgets.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Or when you're getting old, you forget.
I was trying to be on the positive side of life.
Right.
Good, thank you. Made a couple of changes for me, Mona. Thank you very much. I do not have any other
I do not
comments.
either.
Nor I.
Good, then I'll make the motion that we accept the meeting minutes of November 19th, 2015.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. As we steam right along, the next agenda item is citizens' comments. Mr. Douglas, citizen in hand, anything?
I have no comments this evening.
Thank you, thank you. I would like to make just a reminder that, are we finished with appointments for the year as far as the technical appointments?
I think I have a couple still outstanding on my plate, Mr. Dolly.
Okay, well, we'll try to clear those up as we try to then jump into more of the budget season so we can focus.
So we
Great.
should have a goal before the new year to make sure all our appointments are done.
Okay. That's a good goal. I don't have any other comments.
I do not either.
Nor
Amos,
I.
no?
No, thank you.
Then I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much and good night.